I'm Janna Fiester, Vice President of UX and Creative at Sandstorm. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Fun facts, which were already told, but I love to share these again, is that I am a TEDx lead here in Oak Park. I've run TEDx women events and TEDx salons for the last 6 years. And also during that time, I am a flamenco dancer. Love Spanish things and fell in love with flamenco when I was in Spain. So over to you, Sandy.
Becca did such a great job introducing us now. All right, morning, everyone. I'm Sandy Starr, the UX researcher and designer on the Sandstorm team. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And the fun fact about me, I'm a soccer playing, beginner, quad skating, dog lover, excuse me, from the colorful island of Jamaica. So happy to be here with everyone.
Okay. So let me tell you a little bit more about Sandstorm. So Sandstorm is a digital agency located in Chicago with Sandstormers, that's how we're called, Sandstormers, located all over the US. Our clients are organizations who want to use marketing, technology, and UX to achieve their missions. These organizations include professional and trade associations, higher ed, and larger nonprofits. All of our developers, and by the way, our developers are amazing. They make our dreams come true, are located all over the US, and many are Drupal and Kintico certified. And over the past 15 plus years, we've conducted over 4,200 hours of UX research that we'll be referencing today for our 10 design principles.
Alrighty, so I wanted to start us out with a fun fact. You really only need 5 to 6 users to identify 80% of the usability issues with websites or any digital products. I love this because as a researcher, it means we don't have to do usability testing on hundreds of people or really large focus groups. Just a handful of individuals can really provide some valuable feedback on any unintended actions with your usability testing, any user frustrations, and any confusions the user's having with any prototypes that you're testing. So yay. Okay, so let me now turn to why we conduct research and usability testing. It allows us to focus on a user-centric approach. What are users typically doing? What are their tasks? What are their goals? We also get to see what content users want and need and when they need it or want to access it. Both actions show us what keeps users engaged and how best to reduce any issues that they're having. Overall, it's also really important to find better solutions or errors earlier to decrease those development costs so devs can really just get in there and make the best solution possible. Research and testing work together to ensure that we're putting users first by identifying their needs, their wants, their behaviors, and we work to improve and simplify those experiences. Then we test the solutions to see what works and look for more areas of opportunity.
UX and accessibility goes hand in hand. After all, our goal is to create an amazing experience that is delightful for all users. Knowing that 26% of the US population, that's over a quarter of the US population, has a disability, is a driver to embrace accessibility in all of our marketing tactics, from print, social, and especially digital. By focusing on accessibility, we can ensure that nobody is excluded.
Now we get into the really fun stuff. Here at Sandstorm, we have learned and synthesized over 4,200 hours of research. And then we get into accessibility testing and more audits. I'm excited to go on this journey together this morning to share the impact of UX best practices, usability, accessibility, and what you can start to implement today on your website or in your daily work. Let's go. Okay, I'll start us off with our very first design principle. Users want everything instantly. Generally speaking, we want things now rather than later. The evolution of tech and access to information has given people this strong desire for immediate rewards. They want things right now. When it comes to waiting for pages to load, most users think they're more patient than they actually are. Data collected stated that this year, almost 53% of users hit refresh when a page took more than 3 seconds to load. Web pages don't have loading bars, so when the page is slow, users don't know if the delay will be a millisecond, 15 seconds, or maybe the page won't load at all. In regards to our own human behavior, half of us can't control ourselves. After 3 seconds, we start to hit the refresh button, and the back button is nearby for those speedy escapes when we're over it. What's funny is that 3 seconds sounds super impatient, but it can feel like forever. 3 seconds feels like this. 1, 2, 3. Now for half of you, that probably drove you crazy with my counting, but I'm one of those people. We're just conditioned to expect things quickly. It gives this idea of perceived value and that it increases with speed. Even on mobile devices, we expect load times of 3 seconds or less. The data shows that with each increasing second, the probability of a user bouncing is over 100%. No matter what, faster is better and less is more. It's all in the data. But guess what? I have great news. 15% of sites are fast enough. Google recommends that your site loads in 5 seconds or less. So woohoo, we have a gift of 2 more seconds. If you're missing the mark when it comes to page speed, you're also missing out on the chance to bring on new customers and users to your website. Luckily, we have some handy dandy tools to help us check and test our website speeds. So we recommend using the page load test on Google Chrome through that inspect function, or you can visit a site called GT Metrics, or go to a Page Speed Insights through Google. Those are super helpful. So the takeaway here for this first principle, your users perceive fast is easy. If your site loads quickly, you've just satisfied the human desire for instant gratification.
Okay, our second design principle. Users don't read, they scan. The internet has made our brains evolve into what we like to call a digital brain. And these new circuits that make up the digital brain quickly scans the information to make sure the user's in the right place and this is the right content to meet my need. And as you just learned in Principle 1, this is all done within 3 seconds. Making sure your content is scannable is key to creating a great UX and accessible experience. Since users scan, we need to create digital experiences to reflect their needs at that moment. This includes creating clean and catchy headlines to draw them in, scannable headlines that inform and engage the user as they get the main point without reading all the body content. But that being said, we have to make sure the detailed content is available for when the user is ready or needs more details. So the content has to be created and has to work harder to meet the needs of all those different users. Also, our digital brains love images. Images help bring the content to life and not make the page feel too text heavy. But you need to make sure those images are relevant and support the content. So don't believe me? Well, let's take a look at this usability study conducted by Nielsen Norman on an Apple Watch product page. On the left side, you'll see the product page. It is clean, with engaging headlines, relevant images, and concise body content. Now take a look at the right image with the eye tracking map from the usability study. You can see exactly where the participants are looking. The larger the circles, the more time the user spent reading. As the participants moved down the page, their eye traveled from subhead to subhead. Some went to content to image, others image to content. But they all went down and went back and forth, much like a lawnmower, back and forth and down the page. So this visual captures the digital brain in their natural habitat. Additionally, to help the digital brain scan, include different types of content like pull quotes and bulleted lists. Also, add more visual content, including videos, and don't forget about that social sharing pattern for easy engagement. This page from Patagonia is right on. Users aren't reading, they are scanning. And variation in the content helps scanning, increases engagement, and reduces fatigue. From an accessibility perspective, these same practices to make the content more scannable help the content have a clear hierarchy, which screen readers and other assistive technologies need. Since the screen reader converts text, buttons, images, and other screen elements into speech or braille, the page structure needs to be developed and the content entered with accessibility in mind. If the site is built with accessibility best practices and a clear, consistent structure, you'll be able to tab through the content and check if your content reads correctly and in the order you intended. If you don't have access to a screen reader, you can try a Chrome extension like Screen Reader. After installing the extension, you go to the web page and you can tab through the content. The extension will read the page to you as you tab. Listen to the page being read by the screen reader. Is the content broken up with headings and lists? Does the content sequence make sense? If not, then you need to make sure the structure is updated so all users can engage with the content. This extension is not perfect, but it can give you a quick idea if your page of content is accessible. So your takeaway for Principle 2, tap into our new digital minds and break up those dense pages of content to be more scannable for all your users.
Thanks, Janna. Our next design principle is users like to share content, even when they don't read it. I am so guilty of doing this.
So guilty.
Yeah. A catchy header or an awesome rich graphic or GIF is all I look at before I send to at least like 5 to maybe 10 people, friends, family, coworkers. It is much worse if it's something related to chihuahuas, min pins, cats, or I'm on one of my morning sharing is caring marathons where I just blast it to everyone. So enough about my sharing quirks. Let's dig into the data. The less time users spend reading, the more likely they are to share it. Data revealed that average scroll depth had little relation to the amount of times users shared a story. People form an opinion based on a summary or summary of summaries without making the effort to go deeper into the content. This habit, this human behavior, is a theory used when organizing content in a page and then testing it for usability. This leads directly to my next point. Infographics and lists are the most shared content. We could see it here on this graph here, and should be made accessible to all users. Infographics can be a challenge for individuals with visual impairments and also for individuals with cognitive disabilities. It can be difficult to follow really complex designs or certain elements on a page that can be distracting. As I pointed out, infographics are not accessible. However, a descriptive transcript can help to meet the wide range of user needs for audio and visual or pictorial information. So full text versions of the infographic are also easier for screen readers to scan and read. So what we want you to take away from this is we know users like to share content, right? We all do it, like we said. So we recommend including social sharing, those icons and buttons, those links, close to your headlines on your web pages. And if your article happens to have those infographics, those image pictures, take the time to provide transcripts for accessibility.
Okay, next design principle number 4. Buttons need more than color to be clickable. Subtle color changes on hover click can be lovely from a brand perspective, but in most cases are not enough for your users. I'm not saying you cannot use color, but just don't rely only on color. Include supporting visual cues to help all users interact with your content. By adding visual cues like in the picture here, like an X for incorrect or a check for correct, helps everyone understand the differences quickly and easily. The action is clear for everyone, including users who are colorblind, blind, or have low vision. It also helps users who love to print things out in black and white. Yes, there are still people out there in the world that love to print out web pages in black and white, so we need to build for them too. And the use of visual cues helps everyone understand the content. Other examples of visual cues that can be used to support color include patterns and symbols, underlining, bolding, or italicizing the font, or adding or changing the shapes as demonstrated in this example. The resulting button, the resting button, is a pill shape, but on hover click, it becomes a rounded rectangle through a delightful micro interaction that is very clickable and fun. Don't feel hindered by the need to add visual cues to your buttons. Think of it more as an opportunity. This need to include a visual cue allows UI designers the opportunity to add more branded elements. For example, the top left card on your screen is very clean, easy to read. On hover click, something unexpected happens. Referencing the overall branding, red waves emerge from the bottom of the card to tell the user that something is ready to be clicked. This cue is unique to the brand and creates a more delightful experience for the user. The bottom buttons are not as dramatic as the top, but still have a visual cue the user can understand. And both of these approaches follow best practices for color contrast, which we'll touch on later in this presentation. So your takeaway, take a hard look at your buttons. Are you relying only on color change to cue that hover click? If so, consider adding a small or even branded visual cue to help all your users interact and engage with your content. And maybe everyone will have a little bit more visual fun along the way.
Alrighty. Our fifth design principle focuses on how users scroll, especially when given a reason to do so. We have been trained on our mobile devices to scroll, and we're back to scrolling on desktops again too, sometimes indefinitely. Examples of this are shopping pages, feeds like Instagram, and those darn TikToks. I am guilty of that, as well as blogs and news sites. So really, users just need a reason, anything to initiate that action. So time for some examples. All right, so our first example, on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation website, we see this bold header text and a background picture. There isn't any clutter, any ads, and too many things to look at, so there's no issues of banner blindness. But for scrolling and engagement purposes, a user doesn't know that there's any other information or content below. Some users will either go straight to the navigation at the top left, or yes, that, or search from here, which means they'll miss out on all the awesome content featured on this page. This is an example of what not to do, but with just an easy tweak, we can improve the UX. I'll show you another solution and explain why it's essential. Check out Uber. They have an engaging hero section with a fun visual, clear call to actions, and just below peeking out, there's just enough content, a section heading, some text, a button, and a little piece of the building poking out, showing and guiding you to scroll further down the page. Ding dong, Uber. At a first glance, a user is able to see right away what the page is about and that there is more to see below. Alrighty, I want to highlight something super special, the fold. It is a carryover term from newspapers. We left that in there for the analog people. It's still a burden. This idea of wanting to cram something, everything above this fold area, but as you see in the graphic, the fold is your sweet spot. That's where people engage. That's what they're looking directly at. And I know you're wondering, what about the lower half? Chartbeat conducted a study and found that 66% of users spent their time on the lower halves of web pages, especially when the content was perceived to be normal. So things that are not advertising or anything like that. Scrolling is faster than clicking, and it keeps users in the flow. So they scroll and will continue to scroll. Since we just talked about what's above, let's look into what's below. Let's chat banner ads. Where you position a banner ad can create a false bottom. On the left here, we see a view of a website, but here's this yellow boxy ad right here. And that interrupts the content on the page, and it will most likely distract you from continuing to scroll down. In a usability study, users would stop scrolling and say that the banner ad indicated the bottom of the page. So place banner ads just above the footer so it does not create a false bottom. So if we look over to the image here on the right, all the content is displayed as designed and intended. The advertisement is below the juicy content and is closer to the footer, which is the true end of the page. So watch out for those false bottoms. You want your user to enjoy all of your content, and we want users to view and interact with the whole page. guide them to truly have the best experience possible.
Okay, principle number 6. This is one we talk about all the time with our clients. I think Sandy and I almost sound like parrots whenever we bring this up to our clients, because let's talk about that auto-rotating homepage hero image. An auto-rotating hero banner does not work for your users. Let me say that again. It does not work for your users. It works for your internal people, but not your users, or at least if they think it works. But the overuse of this tactic has resulted in banner blindness. And banner blindness is real. And worse yet, users think your rotating homepage image is a large banner ad, that you're advertising them right when you land on the page. And more, as we saw in our graph earlier about the fold, the users are ignoring it. They're going right to that bottom of the page and starting to scroll down because that's where they think the juicy content is, and you're not advertising to them. So let's take a look at Samsung. We're going to go back in time a few years ago. This is Samsung's old homepage. The dark image fills the page, which, as we know, can create a false bottom. But we already talked about that. We're talking about the AutoRotator. Okay, focus. Okay, the product image, in this case for the Galaxy Note 20, it auto-rotates. As your user is scanning the content, the image and content will change just without any kind of reasoning. This rotation created banner blindness, and it's bad for accessibility. The arrows located on the left and right that the user could click on to actually gain control of their experience are too small and too faint. They get lost in the background. And finally, the visual cues along the bottom of the hero showing how many images there are and where you are in the rotation, and even gives you a pause button to stop the rotation, everything to give you, again, control, are hard to see, especially on this image. So Samsung must have heard some of this feedback, so they redid their homepage. This is what it looks like today. They changed the branding from dark to light, which feels lighter. The arrows located on the left and right to click through the images are more clear. You actually can see them because they're on a lighter background. The thin bars along the bottom of the image are more visible, and you have the ability to pause the auto rotation. Overall, this is a lot better, but there's still one issue: the auto rotation. Samsung is asking their users to move fast enough to get to their mouse or get to their assistive technology fast enough to stop the content so they can read it. This requirement is putting the work on their users. That is not good UX or accessibility. If you decide to include a rotator, make it user activated, as seen here on the Now Foods homepage. In the lower left-hand corner of the hero, the user knows that there are 3 images represented by those 3 bars. The white has enough contrast with that dark blue so it stands out and it's very accessible. They are, you know you're in the first one because it is filled. You know that you can also click through those different bars, as well as you can start the rotation. You're not pausing the rotation, you're starting it. So it works for users that are there with, if you will, from an exploratory mindset or a task mindset. Explore, play it for me. I want to sit back and enjoy the ride. If you're task focused, let me click through and get to the product I need at the moment I need it. Now, another approach is one shown here on the Northwestern Medicine homepage. They don't rely on rotators. Instead, they include 3 buttons in the hero. If you think about it, these buttons are the ones you would want to access if you go to a hospital. You want to be able to find a doctor, request an appointment, and find a location. These are the 3 common, if not the most common, tasks users perform on this site and are clearly and prominently placed in the hero as buttons. Through UX research or through analytics, Northwestern knew that the actions the users were taking on the site, so they wanted to make it stand out and easily accessible at the top. And we can't talk about heroes without just touching on video just for a second. So if you have a video in the hero that automatically plays when the web page loads, please include a reduce motion button seen here in the top right of the hero. This empowers users, especially those with cognition disabilities, to quickly and easily stop all motion on the site. All the videos, micro interactions are stopped at the click of a button, making the experience extremely accessible for all. So your takeaway? Reduce banner blindness by not using auto carousels. Prioritize or personalize the experience so your users have control to access the content the way they want to access it.
Number 7, PDFs are not accessible.
Dun,
Today,
dun, dun.
Today, PDFs are still alive and well. In most cases, PDFs are used because it is believed that they're faster and easier to create than a web page. And while it may be easier to upload the final version of a PDF file, it still takes time to plan, design, and develop its content. Get ready for this direct quote, and I have a picture on the slide as well. Oh, look, another PDF file. Yep, this is something I would share with people as well on my sharing is caring. Okay, so what's really wrong with PDFs? PDFs don't respond to this screen, which results in wasted space or a lot of zooming on mobile. It's really not designed to be read online. We can't collect a lot of analytics from PDFs except how many times they were downloaded. So again, a missed opportunity there. And PDFs can create a bad experience. Sometimes they open in a new browser over here, a new tab, a separate app. Sometimes PDFs just automatically download. In these examples mentioned, the user has no control and can be taken away from the site. Users can also become disoriented and lose their context with the site, making it harder to return. PDFs are not automatically accessible. They need to be created with tags, headings, readable text, have that color contrast we've been talking about, images with alternative text. Even if this work is done according to those best practices I just stated, there's still no guarantee that the PDF content will meet the accessibility needs of users and their technology. PDFs aren't going away, but let's talk about the right ways to do it. Sometimes you need to keep the content as a PDF, especially if there are long case studies, large reports, a lot of dense content. In that case, create gateway pages. Here we have the screenshot of an HTML page, also known as a gateway page. It summarizes the key points and the most important takeaways from the PDF. These pages are shareable, can include table of contents and topics so the user and Google understands the page and content before they download it. These pages empower the user to download the PDF when and if they're ready to read it. You'll spare your users the nasty surprise of being dumped into a PDF file. Create PDF gateway pages for a better and more accessible user experience, and it's also better for SEO as well.
Okay, so here we are. We've mentioned it a few times earlier. Let's talk about contrast. Contrast is principle number 8. Many users struggle with contrast. Lack of contrast hinders legibility, making the website hard to read. Contrast needs to be considered in regards to color, fonts, and background. At Sandstorm, we believe accessibility is a spectrum. We need to consider all the users when we think about contrast. For example, look here at the hero content. The dark color behind the white headline is too light. It does not have enough contrast. So this organization added a high contrast mode at the top of the site above the navigation, which is a great idea, except when the user flips to high contrast, the contrast is too dark. The 100% black or true black background has too much contrast for people who do not have vision concerns. The contrast is too high and increases users' fatigue. So you may be thinking now you cannot win. How do you know if you have the right contrast ratios? Well, let me show you. At Sandstorm, we start with WebAIM. This is a free tool that tells you quickly and easily if you have the right contrast ratio. You simply enter your hex colors in the foreground and in the background. Then your contrast ratio appears, and you can see it in the green box. In this example, it's 8.59. And that means your color passes and you're good to go. We usually at Sandstorm, depending on the project, go for AA WCAG. Not many people go after AAA, but I love a good AA. But let's say you have your colors in there and you can't, and it's not working. You get the big fail message. Don't take it personal. You're not a failure. Your colors failed. Go, just relax. Because what you can do is below your hex colors, you can adjust the lightness and darkness to then fine tune that contrast to get the right colors that will work for your UI and also for all your users. Another thing is always check foreground and background colors. Just because a color works on a white background does not mean it'll work on a black background. Take a look. The blues above and below each other are the same in this graphic. The blues on the far left, the one above in the white and the one below in the black, that's the same color blue. The one on the white passes with AAA. That's insane. But the one on the black, it fails miserably. It's illegible. Same thing on the far right. The same blue color is used on the top and bottom. It passes AAA on black, but it fails on the white. So this is something to really consider when you're looking at contrast, is just because one color works on white doesn't mean it's going to work on a darker color. Here, black, but maybe if you have other tones in your brand guidelines, you need to test all those ratios, which, as you saw with webbing, can take some time. Thank goodness there's another tool we use that you can use to put in all your brand colors. And we recommend using the accessible color palette. Again, this is another free tool. It's kind of a lot of fun because you get to put everything in there at one time. Let me show you. So you put in all your colors from your brand color palette, and then the accessible color combinations are created for you. You know at a glance what color fonts can be used on what color backgrounds. All the gray tones in the middle are color combinations that are not accessible. Therefore, you should not be using them. Don't even look at those. Just look at the ones that are filled in. The ones that are filled in, the color combinations give you a great quick view to review a lot of colors at one time. And then you can go in and fine tune those. You can also share these results across your teams and even with clients to help create consistent contrast on all your different branded applications. So your takeaway for this section, remember to test all your colors for contrast to improve your web accessibility and your UX.
Principle number 9, text links can create a sticky user experience. Links are text or a graphic that indicates it can be clicked are still the primary means by which users navigate the web, moving within a site or to external related sites through clicks. Links let users achieve the objective of why they're on your website, which will positively affect their experience. Usable hyperlinks are the essence of good user experience. And I found this image and I thought this was perfect because we'll see, fill in this form, whatever it's called by the end of the day. More information here, here, and here. Check the security policy by this link. A user in the den of bad links. All right, I'll get into the good stuff. Good UX equals good usability equals good accessibility. Link text need to be descriptive and unique, hence why I just showed that image. When a link is presented as here or this or more, it's harder to aim with a cursor or finger. Also, it lacks transparency. What is hidden behind it? A page, a file, an article, who knows? Also, not all links in a page or in an email are equally important. If there's a primary link, whereas other links can possibly be skipped over, to draw people's attention to the main action, you could think of presenting that link as a button instead. You can also group links as a bulleted list on the side of related paragraphs or under a suitable title, like recommended materials or resources. And when you have downloadable links, besides embedding those download links into a meaningful phrase, you should also inform users about the file format and the size by adding further context like read-only, editable, editable, or the download side. Again, we're just trying to inform the user as much as possible. In regards to assistive technology can be programmed to only navigate the link text on a web page. While screen readers can read a full web page to a user, screen readers may prefer to instead, our user may prefer to instead listen to a list of links. So in that case, the screen reader may only read the link text and not the surrounding text around it. For this assistive technology, some users may just want to just hear what those actions are specifically instead of going through all the context. So that's another thing, option for those users. Again, to drive the home links used need to be descriptive to help with easy navigation and for users to understand the page contents. Speech recognition tools can be programmed to open a link after specific voice commands. So very similar to how we use our smart devices like Mr. Siri, Miss Google, and Senorita Alexa. I had a lot of fun with this presentation. Okay, so let's get into some real world examples. How can we make them better based on what we just reviewed? So we have example one. We have a red, not good, and a green, good to go. So the first one, the red, for example one, this has a long URL. The issue is it's really not descriptive enough. So to improve it, we need to make it more accurate and clear. Again, we're trying to develop that trust with the user by giving them as much information as possible so they feel empowered to click through and follow through with the link. Then we move to example two. This features a cute little click here, but it needs more context like we just reviewed. It doesn't tell you where you're going or what the link is about. So to improve it, with a quick, simple description of what it is, it gives a specific destination, the accessibility guidelines and web standards. That is perfecto. Example three, information for current students, information for new students. What is the hyperlink that's linked? Multiple links have the same reference word as students. Remember, users don't read, we scan, so they're just really just seeing students. So to improve this by differentiating the links, adding current students and new students as a proper link for the name is specific as it informs the user faster so they're able to differentiate the link specific to them or what their needs are. It's not hard to replace click here with something more meaningful. It's an instant improvement to the user experience when people know where they're going and when they don't have to look for a mouse to get there. It's also worth noting that your SEO can be massively improved with descriptive links that take people to meaningful places as well. So the takeaway here is just expose those text links thoughtfully and succinctly. Link text need to be descriptive. A user should be able to know exactly where a link is going to take them or what a link will open just from the link text alone without any surrounding text. And again, it's good for accessibility. Da, 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 da. Our last and final principle of the day, empower the user to navigate your site. Navigation serves important functions. It shows users that what they can find at the site. It teaches them about the structure of the site, and it is one of the primary ways search engines crawl your sites to find and index content. Navigation needs to be obvious and super clear to a user how it works and functions. It's also one of the main parts of a site that initially undergoes usability testing to see if users are able to follow the flow of content. All right, check out the Puma website. When you tab through the Puma experience, you really have no indication there at the top that there is a menu. I can't find it. And a typical user just sees the main navigation and hero section. Interesting. Now look at this. It's a mega menu. If a user is on desktop with a mouse, they're able to hover and click to reveal this mega menu that can take them to the coordinating landing pages. Unfortunately, just tabbing through, it doesn't work. If a user hits the down arrow, the mega menu then appears. But overall, with the Puma site, there's no indication that a menu is available. It's not obvious enough. All right, so now we have the New York Times. We're not saying every site needs a mega menu. The New York Times website here screenshotted, has a menu navigation that has a short title names that in one click or a tab takes you to the content's landing pages. There's no dropdown. This site has an extensive amount of content and went with the navigation strategy where user can be funneled through by a topic to more detailed pages and experiences. Some sites need to include drop-down menus and mega menus to help the user navigate quickly. Adding a down arrow helps the user understand there's a menu below the navigation. So we also recommend using click to open for the drop-down menus instead of a hover to open to be cognizant of keyboard users, visually impaired users, and those who use screen readers. So we just wanted to give you a few examples of how those different navigation items work. So the takeaway here is we really want to emphasize adding clear cues like arrows and drop downs to your navigation. This really helps to improve your user experience and inclusive design needs.
So remember, in the end, using these 10 principles will make your digital experience work for all users, because after all, good usability is good accessibility. By the way, we're hiring at Sandstorm. We are looking for new Sandstormers to join our team. We are looking for developers, product owners, UX researchers, and designers. Please go to our website or our LinkedIn page to learn more. And if you want to continue the conversation, feel free to connect with myself or Sandy Starr. We do love to continue to talk about UX and accessibility, as well as share really great memes. So thank you so much for having us, and we hope that you liked the content.